My wife's car started logging an impossible number of miles, and our kids were suddenly spending half the week at my in-laws' house. I knew, in my gut, that something was wrong. But I didn't just feel the fear of betrayal. I felt the cold, hard calm that comes just before a storm. I knew in that moment that whatever was happening, it wouldn't just end in a simple divorce. It would end in a carefully orchestrated fall. This is the story of how I became the quiet architect of my wife's lover's destruction, and why the most satisfying revenge is the one you don't even have to lift a finger for. If you've ever felt the quiet satisfaction of watching a scoundrel get what's coming to them, hit that subscribe button right now. Like this video and tell me in the comments, what's the most poetic justice you've ever seen? Get ready, because this story is a masterclass in making sure justice isn't just served, it's exquisitely crafted. The first signs were subtle, almost dismissible. A glance from my wife that lasted a fraction of a second too long. A new, nervous energy when I asked about her day. But the most telling clue wasn't a look or a word. It was the odometer on our family car. Every week, she was driving an extra 400 miles. That's the equivalent of a trip from Houston to Dallas and back, 2, sometimes 3 times a week. She'd take our young kids, then 4 and 6, on a 90-minute drive to her parents' house and back. When I confronted her, she was a terrible liar. The denial was flimsy, and her eyes darted away as if avoiding a physical blow. A cold certainty settled in my chest. This wasn't just my imagination. Something was terribly, deeply wrong. My parents' marriage was a battlefield, a constant toxic cycle of deceit, shouting, and silent resentments that poisoned my childhood. It was a lesson I took to heart. I swore I would never put my own children through that kind of pain. For me, infidelity wasn't just a breach of trust. It was an act of emotional violence. It was a line I would not allow to be crossed, not in my home, not with my family. One day, fate delivered a gift. My wife left a small, yellow sticky note on the computer desk. On it was her AOL password. In that moment, the temptation was a physical force, a pull I couldn't resist. I sat down, my hands trembling slightly, and typed in the password. The screen came to life, revealing a portal to a hidden life. I found the emails, a digital trail of betrayal between her and her college best friend. They weren't just about the affair. They were filled with cruel, gossipy details. She was sleeping with a high school ex-boyfriend, and they were laughing together about his wife. "She's gotten so fat after having kids," my wife wrote. My blood ran cold. The woman in those emails was a stranger. I printed every single one of those emails. The crisp pages were a record of my heartbreak, a tangible monument to her deceit. I tucked them away, a secret weapon for a war that was yet not declared. I needed more, not for my own sake, but for the sake of justice. I called a friend, a police officer I trusted, and asked for a recommendation. He pointed me to a man named Ron, a former cop who'd become a private investigator. Ron was a professional, a man who saw the world in facts and evidence. I gave him the emails and the details of my wife's movements. He went to work. His report came back a week later. It was a meticulous, brutal account of her betrayal, complete with dates, times, and surveillance photos. The narrative was simple and sordid. My wife would drop the kids off at her parents' house, meet her ex-boyfriend for lunch, then spend a few hours in a cheap motel. Afterward, she'd pick up the kids and come home. A perfect picture of a loving mother returning to her unsuspecting husband. The betrayal was no longer a suspicion, it was a proven fact. I sat with the report in my hands, a strange sense of calm washing over me. This wasn't about anger anymore. It was about a different kind of pain, the kind that calls for a different kind of action. I knew I had to end the marriage, but my purpose was now bigger than just my divorce. I hired a divorce lawyer and had the papers drawn up. My wife's infidelity wouldn't have a huge impact on the divorce proceedings, but I knew the value of having the leverage. And with that leverage, a new, more ambitious plan began to form in my mind. I called Ron back. "I need one more thing," I said. "I need
everything you can find on this guy. Ron's work was impeccable. He found out Bob's name, Bob. He found out Bob was married and had 3 kids of his own. The most crucial piece of information was his job. Bob was a VP of sales at his father-in-law's company. This wasn't just an affair. It was a potential corporate and family scandal. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. I met with my lawyer and Ron. I asked my lawyer to get the divorce papers ready. Then I looked at Ron. I need a couple more copies of that report, and I need you to do one more thing for me. On the same day my wife is served the papers, I need you to meet with Bob's wife. Ron's face was unreadable. You want to tell her? No, I said, a slow, deliberate smile spreading across my face. I want her to see everything. She deserves to know. What she does with that information is up to her. I was not the instrument of Bob's downfall. His wife would be. I was just the quiet, patient partner, the person who made sure she had all the information she needed to do what was right. The plan was set in motion. The day came. My wife was served divorce papers at her office. Her world, built on a foundation of lies, began to crumble. At the same time, Ron was meeting with Bob's wife. I pictured the scene in my mind. A quiet coffee shop, a folder filled with photos and reports being placed on the table, the slow dawning horror on her face as she read the evidence of her husband's deceit.
I never heard a word from Bob's wife, and I didn't need to. The public records told the story for me. Bob's wife did a real number on him. She emptied their joint accounts and took the kids. When her father, Bob's boss, found out about the affair, the reaction was swift and brutal. Bob was fired. His ex-wife's parents owned the house they lived in, and a few weeks later, he was evicted. The chaos that followed was a public spectacle, documented in court papers and police reports. Bob and his ex-wife fought relentlessly. One day, the argument escalated so much that her brother stepped in and Bob got his nose broken. Restraining orders were filed, police were called, there were criminal charges, even some jail time. The man who had lived in a perfect world of privilege and deceit was suddenly standing on a precipice, watching his entire life fall apart. I don't know where Bob is now. The internet is a big place, but he seems to have vanished from it. The last I heard, he'd left the state. His ex-wife, on the other hand, did just fine. She went to work for her father's company and eventually took over the business. Justice, in a way, was served to 2 people. As for me, my ex-wife and I managed to keep things civil for the sake of our kids. The divorce was clean and relatively painless. Once the kids were grown, I didn't talk to her at all. There was no hatred, no lingering resentment. She was simply a part of my past, a person I no longer had any reason to engage with. The pain had faded into a quiet, resolute calm. The story of the revenge wasn't mine to tell. It was Bob's wife's. I was just the quiet partner, the ghost in the machine, the man who provided the tools for a woman to reclaim her life and deliver a dose of karma so perfect, so complete, it would make any Hollywood screenwriter envious. The best revenge is never about direct confrontation. It's about knowing when to step back, to allow the truth to do the talking. It's about empowering others to deliver the justice they deserve. There's a common saying that revenge is a dish best served cold, but I learned something different. The most satisfying revenge isn't served at all. It's simply the act of giving a dishonest person enough rope to hang themselves with. You don't have to break anyone, you just have to give them the stage to break themselves. What's the most satisfying act of poetic justice you've ever witnessed? Have you ever had to sit back and let someone's own actions be their downfall? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this story of quiet revenge and perfect karma satisfying, be sure to like and subscribe for more stories of justice served Reddit style.